All right. So, oops, I just hit my new fancy little microphone. I don't know.
Uh-oh.
I've got too much around me. I got to use this setup.
Okay.
All right. We are moving into topic Tuesday. All right.
Okay.
A lot of information from Duke, our fourth year medical student who is assisting with these posts. So this was his week to come up with. So we're getting back to the diagnostic testing, and we've already talked about echocardiography, your echocardiograms, and we talked about CT. This was the stuff that they've shared over the last couple weeks, and on this particular day, they were going to discuss with you a little lesser known imaging modality that's called. Do you know what TEE stands for? Transesophageal echocardiography. Transesophageal echocardiography. That's what a TEE stands for. And it's another pretty important way that you can actually detect an aortic aneurysm or a dissection. So a TEE, usually underneath of some light sedation, is actually a probe that enters your mouth and advances along the esophagus. So it's not in your breathing tube, right, which is your trachea. Because the esophagus runs parallel and close to the thoracic aorta, it actually can give high resolution images of nearly the entire thoracic aorta. It gets it really, really, really close,
Mm-hmm.
closer than your echocardiogram that's got to penetrate through your sternum and all of that. This goes right down there and just is right there next to your aorta. So it's kind of cool if you think about it. So in this diagram, you can actually see the TE probe here is seen within the esophagus on the right and is noticeably nearby important structures like the heart on its left and the aorta on the right. And so here we are. This is your trachea, that's your breathing tube. This is the esophagus, and here they have passed that TEE through, and it's kind of right here at the heart, right here at the aorta. So it goes into your mouth, down your esophagus, which leads to your stomach, stops here and was like, cool, we're going to take a few pics of your thoracic aorta. So they can really get and move this along and get some really nice resolute images of this area. So it's kind of like that 360 around imaging. So the key advantage of having a TEE over a CT, because I didn't even know there was a key advantage, but there is, or an MRI, is that it can actually be done very quickly. And if it needs to be done, it can be done in the ER right next to your bed in the emergency room. It could be done in the operating room. If you're in the ICU and there's a reason, they can just pull this to you versus taking you to this machine.
Mm-hmm.
So it also provides a lot of information about the functional status of your aortic valve, which I know can be seen in your echoes or your echocardiographies, but this can give even more detailed information about how your valve is operating and how it might play a part with the aortic dissection and the blood flow and any clots in the thrombosis. We talk about that, that form in the false lumen. The
Mm-hmm.
TEE also offers a rapid and relatively inexpensive way to diagnose aortic disease. So that's another key point too. It's definitely less expensive than your CT or MRI, but there are some drawbacks. And so the major drawback is it can be uncomfortable, but again, there is a degree of sedation involved, and because the probe is going deep down your throat. So they don't want you awake. They don't want you, you're not going to have general anesthesia, but it's kind of like that twilight sleep, but you won't even know that it's going in or coming up. It's almost like if you've had your colonoscopy and you've had an endoscopy, anything that goes in the mouth and the esophagus, it's the same thing. So you're in that twilight sleep, but not where you're clearly not having a conversation with the tube, put down your throat. So you won't really realize it. It doesn't really at the end make your throat extremely sore or anything like that. I've had one done. I've also heard from community members. It's like you wake up and you close your eyes, you open your eyes, it's all done. It's very quick. So,
I
oh, you had one?
Okay. I had one when I first dissected Karen, but I was awake.
Oh,
I was awake. They had to rush me to surgery, but it was right before they took me in. They took this thing and they said, that, usually I did not know what it was. They said, look, they said, we usually sedate patients, but we don't have time. And
wow.
what they'll do, they want to go in there with a camera. I'll have to swallow it. And I guess it's tapped like a balloon. And they wanted to see the dissection take a look in there, and
Yeah.
I had to swallow it. And yeah, I was like, oh man, it was
Yeah.
bad.
Not
Yeah,
fun. I mean, I guarantee
not
obviously
fun.
there's occasions when they need to. I've had an NG
Yes.
tube while being awake, fully awake. They passed it through my nose down into my stomach. And when
Oh,
they did that, I was like, okay, you got it down, take it out now. And they're like, yeah, no, this stays put for a week. So sorry you had to do that while you're awake.
mhm.
Eek. Sorry. Yuck. All right.
I, I have a question, Karen.
Yeah.
Okay, and to anybody else out there, now, later, or what have you, has anybody, when they had the tube put in their mouth, have
Bathing
you
tube.
noticed?
Mhm.
Yeah, has anyone ever noticed there for a long time a narrowing of your trach, trouble swallowing for a long period of time or from time to time?
Hmm.
And I'm not talking just the first 2, 3 weeks after you come out of surgery and that's taken out. But I know, like, the first couple years, it was hard. My food had to be chopped in small pieces because I had trouble swallowing. Now, I don't know if that's just me, but that's a question I'm curious about.
Yeah, that's interesting. We know we're going to have our Ask a Doctor coming up on September 19th. You could always ask Dr. Prakash that question and his thoughts. We'll get into our events coming up in September in a minute. There's a couple doctors you have many opportunities to ask, but
Okay.
I would think coming right out of it, there would be a degree of swelling and
Right.
it wouldn't be permanent. But I don't know. I actually can't remember if I ever had any problems. I only remember right then and there. I don't remember
Hmm.
anything for those first like year or two. It's such a blur. I don't
Ryan,
know.
hold on, hold on. So Ryan here says, before they discovered the massive amount of anesthesia I require, I was wide awake for my first TEE. Not pleasant. I've now had around 12 TEEs. They're a breeze when you're asleep. And then he said,
Yeah.
I can barely brush my teeth in the morning without gagging. So heck no to the awake TEE.
Yeah, no.
Hmm.
Yeah, I would
I
think
feel
only in
your pain.
the most emergent situation, I can totally understand that. Well, so I think that was supposed to say, I'm not sure what the sentence is, but the typical features of an aortic dissection are you have that double lumen, which is a true lumen and a false lumen. So when you think about a tube, if you dissect and part of it comes away, I don't know if you can
Hmm.
see that, it creates two channels. One
Right.
true feeds the blood flow to everything else. One false does not go anywhere. And typically, you almost hope it thromboses or forms this clot throughout. Okay.
Hmm.
So these are actually separated by a mobile membrane that can be seen to move back and forth with each heartbeat. And it creates different flow patterns within the true and false lumen. So below is actually an image obtained from a TEE with its colored Doppler showing the presence of a false lumen created by the dissection, which is designated as FL, and the TL as the true lumen. So the red and the blue is a function of Doppler to indicate the direction of blood flow. So um, there you go. And don't ask me to explain any more about this because I'm not a medical professional. Just repeating what I'm reading. If you have a question, you should
Okay.
definitely take it up with your doctor and your radiologist. They love explaining this stuff. So, yeah, true lumen, false lumen. My true lumen's very tiny. My false lumen's a lot bigger. So that's just interesting. All right. So
Hmm.
that's all that he kind of had for the TEE and aortic dissections and aneurysms. But hoping it's helpful in describing the wrap up of the last types of diagnostic tests that we typically see between an echo, a CT, MRI, or the TEE. And we've got one other exciting thing coming in this next week, and then it's all going to be about September, Aortic Disease Awareness Month. Lots of info coming. So that was our topic Tuesday.